we are off and underway. Here comes the chase behind. It's a steep climb. This is a good move now. Can he try and hang on? Lines up for the sprint. Can he steal this one? Is he going to take the stage? Yes, he is.
Hello and welcome to the AJ Bell 2021 Tour of Britain. Bit of a breather last year. Well, didn't we all have one of those? But it is back. It is bigger, better than ever. Britain's best cycling race is fighting fit. This year, the AJ Bell Tour of Britain really does live up to the name. Starting in the West Country, the peloton then heads to Wales before racing across the north of England. It all finishes in Scotland, with the champion being crowned in Aberdeen. Really pleased to say, joining me on the AJ Bell Tour of Britain all week this week is Pippa York, a former winner of the race back in 1989, a former British national champion and winner of the mountains classification, not only in the Tour de France, but also the Giro d'Italia as well. Amazing palmares. And Pippa, memories of the Tour of Britain over the years?
A really nice race, always interesting as a rider, and always exciting when you come as a spectator, which I have, on numerous occasions. So yeah, it's a really nice race to be at and to ride in.
And now where it sits in the calendar as well, good prep, as we say, every year for the Worlds that happen for the men, 3 weeks today, of course, in Flanders. You'll see why. We've got the likes of Wout van Aert here and Julian Alaphilippe again teeing up for that.
Yeah, we have, and it's so it's roughly we're 3 weeks from the World Championships, so a really good block of hard racing to prepare for that. You'll come out of this, and if you're in good shape, you'll come out in better shape.
Yeah, it is a good block. In fact, the whole race this year, the 8 stages, you can break them up into 4 sort of sections, if you like. 2 in the southwest of England, 2 in Wales, 2 in the north of England, and then finishing off with 2 stages in Scotland. Where do you think the race is going to be won or lost?
I don't think there'll be one stage where it's, crucial. The thing about when you do the Tour of Britain and you race to try and win the GC is you have to be in the front every day. And on these type of finishes like we've got in Bodmin, there's going to be gaps, 5-10 seconds here and there, and it's always a tight race.
Yeah, we'll talk about the finish here in Bodmin in just a second. But first, let's hear from some of the riders racing the Tour of Britain this year.
I think some of the stages in Cornwall will be really, really exciting, and the landscape down there is fantastic.
I haven't lined up at a road race in a few years now, and I think this is a good one to come back to. I'm excited to do it with Trinity, and 8 days, that'll be extremely hard.
For me though, big focus, obviously stage 3, team time trial. Really excited for that one. Really, it's going to be a fast one.
And I will be in a Tour of Britain for the first time. I hope to be competitive, and you will see in the sprints.
We're super excited for this year's Tour of Britain. It looks like a super interesting course, and we're really looking forward to racing each and every stage.
Yeah, there's a stage from my home in Carlisle across to the northeast, and that'll be a really nice stage. Across the Penzance, nice scenery, as long as the weather's okay. And then there's also a real nice stage in Wales as well, which I'm looking forward to, with a little uphill finish, and be interesting to see how that goes.
This is my 3rd time racing the Tour of Britain. It's my first time racing in the UK since the coronavirus and since my Olympic silver medal, so really looking forward to it. We have a really strong team here, and it's going to be really hard racing.
We are super excited about racing aggressively into some breakaways and adventuring on your crazy roads.
It's my first Tour of Britain. I've been to the race several times with my family to watch, so to be racing on home roads on stage 2 in Devon will be absolutely brilliant. So yeah, I look forward to seeing you all there, and see you on the road.
Pippa, we hear the excitement from the big names in the sport like Mark Cavendish about coming back to British roads and racing them again, but equally important, maybe even more so, for the more junior riders.
Yeah, it is nice for them, so they get to race with their heroes, some of them. And you know, if you're local and you have that local knowledge, you'll probably see your family and friends on a hill somewhere, you know, and they'll be cheering you on, and that can be quite important if there's any kind of crucial points where you have to be in the front.
And with the race starting in Cornwall today, there is a Cornish team, of course, on the Tour of Britain this year. St Piran as well. Should know these roads pretty well. Should have trained on them. The likes of Steve Lampier should know them like the back of his hand, you'd have thought, zigzagging all over Cornwall. Let's talk specifically about the finish, Pippa, seeing as we are in Bodmin now. You look at this drag and you think it would be perfect for Mathieu van der Poel if he was back here defending his title at the Tour of Britain. But who would you bank on to do well today?
I think on a finish like this, we're looking at Julian Alaphilippe and Wout van Aert. It's probably a bit too difficult for the pure sprinters like Mark Cavendish. You know, we walked up the hill from the bottom, and it's pretty steep down there.
Yeah.
So that's probably going to rule him out. So I would say between those two.
Yeah. Hostilities will start right here between Wout van Aert and Julian Alaphilippe. Could last all week. Who knows? Let's have a closer look at today's stage now.
The start of the 2021 race takes place near Britain's most westerly point in the port of Penzance. After heading to St Just, the first Skoda King of the Mountains points come at Zena and Rosewall Hill. Hale then offers the first sprint points before the peloton heads across the country to the dash at Penryn. Old Carnan Hill is the last Category 3 climb on Stage 1, which is nearly 80 kilometres from the finish. Having passed through Newkeep and St Austell, it's an undulating ride to the line in Bodmin. Famous for its pirates, Penzance is set in Mounts Bay and has one of the mildest climates in the United Kingdom. Down around the water's edge you'll find pubs and restaurants and the open-air Jubilee bathing pool. Bodmin is the only large Cornish settlement recorded in the Domesday Book. Bodmin offers easy access to the rugged Bodmin Moor, one of Cornwall's designated areas of outstanding natural beauty.
OK, let's get straight to the action now with our commentators Adam Blythe and Ned Bolting.
Well, the countdown is upon us and the neutralised rollout from the Western Promenade in Penzance has begun. The Tour of Britain can get underway again. Thank heavens, after 1 year without the race, it's back, and haven't we missed it just. This intriguing blend of absolute world-class top riders and big teams mixed up with the traditional concoction cocktail of domestic pros, young riders just making a name for themselves, and a smattering of international talent too. That's Joey Roscoff, for example, the American national champion riding for Team Rally. We've got a peloton of 107 riders rolling out in slightly overcast conditions today in Penzance, although we're not expecting rain today, and indeed that mist, that sea mist, if you can call it that, in Cornwall could yet burn off and the sun could shine on this race. As Wout van Aert and Mark Cavendish then occupy centre stage, just on the bumper of the race director's car. It'll be a few kilometres, around about 10 minutes before the flag drops. Alongside them, a couple of riders from Quebec and Nextash, Sean Bennett, the American, and Carlos Barbero. And Andre Greipel as well, in his last visit to these shores before finally retiring, the man from the Israel Startup Nation himself as well. Second only to Mark Cavendish in terms of the riders in this race. He has won 7 stages in the Tour of Britain historically. We'll be back in just a minute or two. Do not go away.
Welcome back to the AJ Bell Tour of Britain 2021. As usual, the attacks came thick and fast after the official start, and finally 5 riders managed to break clear of the peloton. Ollie Stockwell from Team GB, Joseph Roscoff, the American champion from Team Rally, Jacob Scott of Canyon DHB Sun God, Nick Delmini of Team Quebec and Nextash, and also Max Walker from Trinity Racing. And it was the Canyon DHB Sun God rider Scott who took the first Skoda King of the Mountains points at Zena, a rider more than familiar with this competition, having won it before. Nick Delmini crested the next Cat 3 climb of Rosewall Hill, and then Scott took the first iceberg sprint in Hale. As we rejoin the race, the gap is still around 2 minutes, heading towards the second sprint at Penryn.
Well, that's the confirmation of Nick Delmini taking the maximum points over the second Skoda King of the Mountains, the Cat 3 Rosewall Hill. Max Walker in second place, Jake Scott, who won the first climb of the day, relegated to 3rd place, but sharing the lead in the King of the Mountains competition overall, as things stand, with Max Walker and Dlamini a couple of points behind them. And there is the site of the former world champion, Mark Cavendish, the man who went to the Tour de France, picked up 4 more stages, and is now level with Eddie Merckx, as if you needed reminding. But today, he is putting in an effort to try, we would imagine and assume, to get Julien Alaphilippe the victory and take the leader's jersey in a race that his teammate won 2 years ago. Cavendish on the front. 1 kilometre to go, a little bit more than that, 2 kilometres to go until the sprint at Penryn. But they're getting ready for it now. For the best part of an hour and a half, not too much has happened as they go through now 1K to go.
It's a quick K.
It was, yeah. Well, I think the graphics a little bit out of sync with reality, as they often are. But 1K to go until the sprint in Penryn.
Looks like 2 different races with the camera angles. We're getting one face in the wind and getting the rain, and then this angle there. It looks like a fairly nice day, doesn't it? But I'm sure these riders are, I'm not going to say welcoming a bit of rain because it's not too hot, but at least it's not chucking it down.
A little bit of cat and mouse on the roads here. Jake Scott, don't forget, is the rider who took the first sprint. Dlamini is very wary of him, keeping a good eye on the British rider from Canyon DHB. It's almost like words are being exchanged with the two of them, but they're just firing each other a glance. And Scott eyeing up Dlamini, all the other riders, including Joey Roscoff, the American national champion, lining up on the wheel of the race favourite, if you put it in those terms. Scott has looked very strong in this breakaway, taking the first climb of the day, scoring again at the second climb, and then taking the first iceberg sprint. And for that reason, he's pinned to the front here, and they're all lining up on his wheel. That's the problem that his strength has placed him in now. It's uphill through this sprint, and they know that Scott is going well, and he's had to sprint from the front, and he's going to have to do this the hard way. There is the sprint finish, and he's going to hold on, and that's a powerful ride indeed. Max Walker in second place, and it's Ollie Stockwell who picks up third. But Scott had it all to do there because they were all lined up on his wheel, Adam.
He did indeed, and it's interesting. I think, you know, when you look at the British riders and the racing that they've had before it, you know, they've done a lot of criterium racing, and criteriums are generally races around town centres, about 1 hour long in distance, but it's a lot of stop-start and a lot of fast sprinting racing. So for these British riders that come and do these races, you know, starting from a lower speed sprint and then accelerating hard like this, they'll be more accustomed to it than sprinting at the end of 200k. So at the end of it, they might have very different sprints to what the riders, the World Tour riders that they have. But for these riders, doing these criterium racing and having that little very, very quick burst of speed in their legs, it'll definitely help them, as we've seen Jake Scott again taking those points today. And I think that criterium race is done will definitely help him and benefit him in those sprints, as it has done.
The final climb of the day has just begun, Old Carnon Hill. It's another Category 3 climb. All 3 climbs on today's officially designated climbs. Let's just ignore the fact that they've probably gone over another 74 climbs that aren't officially categorised. But all 3 of the official categorised climbs today are Cat 3 climbs, which means that there are 4 points available for the winner, 3, 2 and 1 respectively. Jake Scott and Max Walker, as things stand, have the most to gain. The 2 riders towards the left-hand side, the centre of the road, I should say, in the blue and that multicoloured kit that Max Walker is wearing that belongs to Trinity Racing, as the American Joey Roscoff, as he often has done on these climbs, finds himself on the front. The man from Raleigh, Joey Roscoff, has not managed to get himself too much out of today's breakaway so far in terms of a tangible reward for his efforts. But nonetheless, a good opening day out for Joey Roscoff thus far. 81.3 kilometres still to go. Ollie Stockwell has, I'm sure, already learned an awful lot about riding in a big stage race against some lofty opposition like Roscoff and Dlamini. .2k to go. It's quite a long climb, this, by standards of a Tour of Britain climb, a British climb. It's 1.6 kilometres in length, 5.6 is the average gradient. Levels off a little bit towards the top, so potentially here they're just getting to the steepest part before gradually it just eases off And then the crowds will get ever thicker towards the top of the final categorised climb of the day. Nick Dlamini almost trying to ride away. Looks across to see where everybody else is, and Joey Roscoff minding his own business on the left-hand side of the road. Meanwhile, Julien Alaphilippe just dodging a Cornish photographer by the side of the road. The world champion from France. Great to see him racing the AJ Bell Tour of Britain. Great to see him on British roads once again. The man who won the race 3 years ago. I wanted to say 2 years ago, but of course we skipped a year due to the COVID pandemic last year. Here we go. So the gradient's easing off, and now it turns into a classic sprint, really, rather than a King of the Mountains prime. And that's not going to favour Dlamini, I don't think, necessarily over particularly Jake Scott, who, down on his drops, he's kind of muscular, isn't he? He's quite intimidating. He's got a kind of presence about him on the bike.
He definitely has, but I'd like to see one of these riders go early. You know, Jake Scott has been not lucky, he's done very well to get the points, but being able to go so late in a sprint and rely on that great kick that he's got. It'd be nice to see a rider go before him and go really early and put that sprint, make a long sprint for him. If they really put him under pressure early, they might be able to get the better of him. But at the minute, they've been leaving it very late. They've been leaving it until, 50, 100 metres, 150 metres to go. And then he's got this explosive kick. So if you're another rider now trying to get these points, attack him early, try and do something else rather than just wait for him to sprint. So if they do that, it's inevitable that he will use that great kick that he's got and be able to take the points again.
Listen to the support at the side of the road. 5 deep here on the left and the right, admiring what is a very, very cagey sprint, effectively, for the final King of the Mountains points on offer on the day. They have slowed down significantly. The peloton has come 30 seconds closer to them. It almost looked like Ollie Stockwell was being goaded into opening up his sprint, but now Dlamini trying to do it the hard way, the only way that he is having to do it, and from the front finds Jake Scott now, challenging him, but unable to match the South African at the moment. And Nick Dlamini might just take maximum points here, but here comes Scott with a charge. Too late. Dlamini takes maximum points. Jake Scott, though, picks up second place, and by my calculations, that could potentially be enough to give Jake Scott the win, or the jersey at the end of the day.
Jake Scott there, I've just noticed within his sprint, and he's sitting down in between sprints to change up a few gears. I think that little quarter of a second delay there could have been crucial. Might be able to, if he didn't have to sit down, and might be able to get a little bit closer. But great by Dlamini there to be able to, take the sprint up a little bit early and put Jacob Scott under pressure a little bit and take the points off of him.
I think they're just doing the maths now, aren't they? Trying to figure out who's in the jersey at the end of the day. We'll wait for confirmation of who that rider will be as the peloton comes through. And this is what the crowd have been waiting to see, not just the battle for the sprint, but now the opportunity to try and spot the great heroes of the World Tour peloton. Riders who they may well have watched during the Tour de France in July, or other races if they particularly follow the sport, coming right through their town. So, confirmation that Nick Dlamini picked up 4 points, Jake Scott picked up 3. And that means that Jake Scott, who went into that in joint lead with Max Walker, he had a 2-point buffer over Nick Dlamini. Dlamini has closed it by just 1 point, so Jake Scott is on the road, the virtual leader of the Skoda King of the Mountains. And there is Truro Cathedral, a Gothic Renaissance piece of architecture dating back to the 19th century. Beautiful. The rain, though, continuing to plague this race a little bit. The sun has not come out, the clouds have not, unfortunately, blown away, and the peloton still keeping the breakaway on a very tight leash. 105 the gap. Welcome back. So he looks around to see where his teammates are, and Quebec Nextash have been riding from time to time quite far towards the front, so they've still, I think they're intending to try and get something out of today, and Nitzolo would be the obvious choice. But you're talking earlier about the riders who could launch a long one. I think Maro Schmidt might be that kind of rider as well. I'm not saying it's going to happen, but he does fall into that kind of, he's a strong young rider, and he could just try something expansive and see what happens. let's hope that a few teams think about doing something like that, because otherwise, if they all just stay together, then the smart money says there's only going to be one outcome, and that might well be a Wout van Aert victory. Not raced since Tokyo, Wout van Aert, where he competed in, obviously, the road race, finishing in second place, picking up a silver medal behind Richard Carapaz. And then in the individual time trial, he finished in 6th place. But this is his racing debut post-Olympics. The final 25 kilometres of today's stage. 18 seconds is all they have now, as Alpecin Fenix now matching De Koning Quickstep, matching Tim de Klerk and Mark Cavendish, who are setting the pace in the blue jerseys for pace. And meanwhile, Quebecer Nextash, the team of Giacomo Nizzolo, are around about in the middle of the bunch as Movistar make a bit of a lunge up on the right-hand side.
Looks to be as Michael Woods there as well from Israel Startup Nation, moving up towards the front. So Michael Woods moving up, knowing that this next climb is going to come. They drop down into it, and then it is quite steep at the bottom. Then it edges off a little bit towards the middle of the climb, then kicks up again. So just getting in position for the start of this next climb to make sure he's able to watch any moves that might go. Tim de Klerk back on the front once again.
And it is interesting just looking at the front of the peloton, trying to second guess what the teams are thinking. And we have noticed that the Israel Startup Nation seem to be using Andre Greipel on the front. And that would suggest to Adam or myself that either Dan Martin or Michael Woods, who are in many ways quite similar riders, might just seize an opportunity there to try something long.
I think they have to. If they want to take time, if they want to try and get a few seconds here and there, then they have to. But the problem is for them, like we say, they've got Wout van Aert and Alaphilippe there.
That's a problem for everyone. It's not an easy solution, but these three riders are about to be caught. For the first time since they've left Penzance, they are almost in the same camera shot. There they are, coming charging at them now as Israel Startup Nation with Alex Dowsett on the front do move to the very front of the race. Looking across, Ben Tullett alongside them in the colours of Alpecin Fenix, the young British rider. And there's a last-ditch attempt now from Stockwell to go clear. It looks like Jake Scott might just be succumbing to the pace that the young Briton is setting on this climb. He is the best climber in the Great Britain team. He comes from this cyclocross background where he's using this ability that cyclocross riders have just to put in a 30-second burst and then recover and then do it again to drop the other riders in the breakaway. And hats off to him. The youngest rider of the 5 who got up the roads is going to be the last man standing.
Brilliant, absolutely fantastic ride, and great way to do it as well, attacking at the bottom of the climb there on the steepest bit, and the gap he's got already is a significant one. He's just got to hold on for as long as he can now with that chasing peloton.
Looks classy, doesn't he? Looks really classy on the bike, and that was a strong move as he looks down, seeking out a bigger gear as he just goes over the crest of that little climb and hits another little bit of descending. But he's dropped them and he's gone clear. Very impressive ride.
Brilliant ride so far, and as he said, Ned, about that cyclocross background, being able to recover on these descents, he'll be able to recover and then get back on that tempo he just did on that last climb there and set that again. But absolutely flying along at the minute. Plenty in the tank left still, hasn't he?
Yeah.
By the looks of things, anyway. Oh.
Just beginning to succumb to the pressure at the back, or was that a
rear wheel puncture by the looks of things? There, bouncing along.
Stuck in a tiny gear as well. Yeah.
Just see now a couple of gaps appearing within the peloton towards the back of it, just up that last climb. So tell the pressure's been really put on now at the front of that peloton. Alex Dowsett towards the front, Tim de Klerk still up there, Mark Cavendish still there as well. But great ride this, and he's extended that gap, hasn't he?
He has, certainly to the two breakaway companions to his left, but that information on the screen suggests there's only 13 seconds between him and the peloton. I think it might be a bit more than that. But this is a notable ride, the biggest and by far the most high-profile thing this young rider has ever done, enjoying the sole attention of the cameras at the front of his national stage race. Ollie Stockwell is looking fine here. A really good ride. Representing a team whose coach, Matt Bramier, had suggested the sensible thing to do would be perhaps for them to sit back in the peloton and actually learn their trade of riding in the bunch. Well, he's done the opposite of that. He's gone off the front, the young lad from St Albans, and he's going really well. As Nick Dlamini, who'd been in the original breakaway, just drops off the back. And you're right, Adam, under pressure now in the peloton, this is being shredded.
It's been shredded indeed. Another young rider there from Team GB.
Max Rushby.
Just slowly distancing out the back there, and one of the rail type riders, but Alpecin Fenix really putting the hammer down at the minute. They've got intentions today. I'm not sure which rider they'll be going for, but really throwing down the hammer. Mark Cavendish just sat there still, just fourth wheel back still. Line of the Koning Quickstep riders. Jumbo-Visma sort of disappeared out of shot at the minute. You can see a couple of riders. I can't make out Wout van Aert at the minute, but all that work on the front, and they've just disappeared towards the back there. But great to see Cavendish at the front supporting his teammates, Alaphilippe, for as long as he can.
And on he goes, Ollie Stockwell. Rampaging ride from him. Been off the front now for a couple of kilometres. How deep can he go into the stage? How much can he hold on to this tiny advantage that he has? Because Alpecin Fenix have taken control of the peloton, and whatever tactic it is that they've got in mind, it's a real change in the dynamic at the front of the race, where up till now it's been controlled entirely by De Koning Quick-Step, primarily with the support of Jumbo-Visma. But now Alpecin Fenix are riding.
James Shaw, I just got a quick glimpse of there from Riverwell. Tap looks to be Matt Bostock just on his wheel, so their GC Hope towards the front, which is great to see.
Sandro Maurice is the rider, I think, just in front of Mark Cavendish. And the work being shared by Jimmy Janssens, Alexander Richardson and Sylvain Dillier. Good solo ride as the motorbikes come roaring past the solo rider at the front of the race now. Just one rider on his own, trying to hold off this, which is coming charging up the road at him. And Alpecin Fenix really riding hard now. And the road is going to continue to rise now. Not entirely without its little descents within it, but by and large it's uphill now until about 15 kilometres to go. So a good 6 kilometres of climbing. And that's how quickly they can reel the breakaway back in when they really start to motor. Alpecin Fenix with 3 or 4 riders then are going to catch the remains of the breakaway, where Ollie Stockwell was the strongest in the end and he lasted longest. And that's it. The race comes back together again. 180 kilometres from Penzance to Bodmin, and with 21k to go, it's all back together.
Looks to be Sparagli, the riding for Alpecin Fenix, the last rider in that train at the minute. It's got Mark Cavendish just on his wheel, so Sparagli, a very capable climber and one that will be able to get to the finish of today. He still is a fast sprinter, I'm sure he is, but we've not really seen him in the sprint so much. But with a reduced group, this might be the day for him today that he's been looking for, to get his chance with being in such a great team such as Alpecin Fenix, to be able to get up there and try and get a stage win.
It's a litter zone, in case you're wondering and worrying about the amount of stuff that's being chucked into the hedgerows. That will all be picked up. This is the authorised point, the last point at which riders are allowed to jettison the bits and pieces that they have in their pockets. And they get back in. Jimmy Janssen it is, then Alexander Richardson, Sylvain Dillier, and you're right. The rider that they are riding for quite clearly is Christian Spirali. He did start his career really as a bunch sprinter, didn't he? He
did, yeah. He's still got a great fast finish on. He did the Tour de France this year, helping Mathieu van der Poel as much as he could for the days he was there. But I'm sure that he'll be looking today, if he can get an opportunity today coming into this finish, that I'm sure he'll take it. And the team riding with big intention at the minute. I think we just go around this corner and then it kicks up more when we get round here, the last little steep part of this climb, which I think is about 1.2 k's long, maybe a little bit less, but with a steep part. So we might see an attack from a rider, some riders, but with the size of this peloton still, it is still large.
Daniel Cataldo from Movistar. Just looking for a bit of room there. Wout van Aert, alongside the Movistar team, bumped down with his Jumbo-Visma teammates to around about 10th place there, alongside Yves Lampaert and the rest of the De Koning Quick-Step team. Davide Ballerini, Mikel Honoré, Mark Cavendish, Lampaert. Where's Julien Alaphilippe? Just riding the coattails there, just tucked in behind Mikel Honoré, the Danish domestique from De Koning Quick-Step. A couple of the Jumbo-Visma riders who've done the work at the long first phase of this race, including Guys Leemreize and Pascal Inkhorn, have dropped away. Sylvain Dillier is looking very fresh, isn't he?
Nico Roach just on the right-hand side of the screen there in the black helmet, just gone out of shot, but moving up towards the front with his teammates.
Quite the show from Alpecin Fenix. They are, of course, the #1 team in the sense that they are the defending champions, even though their leader, Mathieu van der Poel, is not here to defend his title from last year. They're riding as if they own the title of the AJ Bell Tour of Britain. Just Jimmy Janssen on the front.
Little nod there from Julien Alaphilippe. He just said left-hand side of the road, so he just nodded his head, and then the message went throughout those rides, and Alpecin Fenix just blocking them in a little bit. Alaphilippe will have done that, so he's got a little bit more room to move up. With all the riders trying to move up and him being quite far back in that line, it would be difficult for him to move. So just wanting to get one side of the road so he's able to move, so he's able to cover things if needed be.
Tell you what, tucked onto the wheel of Sparali, not too far behind him, is Ben Tullett as well.
There we are, James Shaw there in the orange helmet. He just needs Matt Bostock to come in front of him there just to protect him from the wind that little bit. I know there's not a lot of wind, but Andre Greipel just coming up now to help his leader, Michael Woods, by the looks of things. Michael Woods still has Alex Dowsett in front of him, Marc Soler. 14% now on that sign, it just said. So a steep part of this climb coming up, the last part of the climb.
Alexander Richardson taking over from for Alpecin Fenix. Jimmy Janssen, I think, is done. He's done his turn on the front, and it was a pretty dramatic one as well. He shut down the breakaway. Jimmy Janssen, Alexander Richardson now with Zandro Meurice and Sylvain Dillier, 3 riders from Alpecin Fenix. And Mauro Schmitz is making an appearance there with Simon Clark for Quebecer Next Hash. As riders really beginning to grovel in the wheels at the back. Rhys Britton, the young rider from the GB team. So De Koning Quick-Step still with 3 or 4, including Mark Cavendish, who's really playing his part now, a former world champion with the reigning world champion on his wheel. Such a team of winners, De Koning Quick-Step. There's so many different possibilities that they can play, and you can see the Alpecin Fenix trio of riders have become a little bit detached from their 2 teammates, a little bit further back down, including Christian Sperali and Ben Tullett. Sperali, though, still in that line of riders, just sitting on Wout van Aert's wheel now.
Giacomo Nizzolo there on the left-hand side of your screen in the white jersey with the Italian stripes on his helmet. A very fast sprinter, still there, still moving up. I'm sure the big sprinters that we've talked about so far are all still in this group.
Nizzolo just trying to find the wheel of Schmidt, I think, and Schmidt will protect him a little bit more because Nizzolo had his nose in the wind there. And the Ineos Grenadiers moving Ethan Hayter closer to the front. Welcome back. It's a big battle at the front of this peloton. They're still dropping down towards Bodmin, a bit of a climb to get into town. Almost reaching terminal velocity, the bunch here, as they hit a little downhill section, being powered on by de Klerk, Greipel, de Cataldo, Richie Porte at the front of their respective trains, and Julian Alaphilippe a moment ago, calm as you like, just took one hand off the bars, reached for his bottle and took a drink at a pace where some of the riders are struggling to hold the wheels at the back.
Yeah.
It's incredible.
Cavendish now on the front, just using that aero gain that he can going down the hill. He's got Yves Lampard still in his wheel, and just behind him Alaphilippe as well. So coming into these corners, they'll come out of there probably first and then to be able to dictate where they sit.
Oof, that was a big sweeping right-hander there that they took very, very fast indeed. All-round safety though, Cataldo, Greipel. No opportunities there for anyone so far to crash. 2 riders down at least. Israel Startup Nation, I think that might be Ben Tullett from Alpecin Fenix who's gone down. And from the Israel Startup Nation, it might well have been Mason Hollyman who I think went down. That was at the back of the bunch, and there were the riders who were the most ragged of all. It was that big right-hander that they took so fast. Just caught up there. I think they were the only 2 riders who actually went down, though.
3 riders, George Bennett as well.
Reto Hollenstein it was actually from the Israel Startup Nation. Bennett down, the climbing domestique, the Kiwi from Jumbo-Visma, who's moving on to another team next year. 6.2 kilometres to go. Israel Startup Nation then on the front. That crash did not affect the big players towards the front. They will proceed as if nothing had happened in this reduced bunch. You can see it's a little bit smaller now as Cavendish continues to work on the front with Lampard then and Mikel Honoré. Then comes Davide Ballerini, and in front of him the world champion Julian Alaphilippe. Wout van Aert though playing a much more patient game, just sitting on the wheels of the DSM train down the middle.
Look at the vision of Cavendish, always checking, just sat a little bit back behind Michael Woods, just always checking where the riders are moving up. He'll look across again, and as soon as he sees the rider moves up, he'll just edge forward a little bit more just to protect his leader. Alaphilippe third wheel behind him, behind Yves Lampard as well. Then you've got just in front of Cavendish Michael Woods. He's got Alex Dowsett, a great time trial. He'll be able to hold that tempo as long as possible. Richie Porte's job's done now. Nicholas Roach by the looks of things.
Simultaneously, Andre Greipel and Richie Porte peel over from their respective trains. You couldn't imagine 2 more different riders doing exactly the same job at this point of the race. As Mark Cavendish takes over, it's been a great ride from him, and his former training partner Alex Dowsett moves to the front.
Cavendish now doing a great job, really. We talked about being efficient and how you use other riders to get the best out of yourselves. He's not really hit the front yet on a flat part or an uphill. He's always been behind someone. Same again now. He's got Alex Dowsett doing the majority of that work in front of him. If he sees someone moving up, he'll just slowly push them up. That'll force Dowsett to push on the pedals a little bit more. He's been a very, very clever rider at the minute, and Alaphilippe is getting a perfect ride to the finish. Still, Quick-Step have got 4 other riders around him, so there's 5 riders in total there, so they've got strength in numbers still. Wout van Aert a little bit further back. We've not mentioned him well. We've not seen De Koning quick step, but very, very apparent there. I think Tony Martin just looking to move him up there.
These are the gaps that have emerged after that crash, then just split a little section of riders off the back. 1 or 2 from, well, that's Holliman, the small rider there from the Israel Startup Nation. A couple of riders from the domestic teams there. The pairing, though, from the Ribble Well-type team, they're still there. Matt Gibson and James Shaw, albeit they've been knocked down to around about 25th wheel, as Jumbo-Visma now get their ducks in a row and they move up on the right-hand side of the road. Wout van Aert over the other side of the road. And Cavendish constantly checking. Look at that head behind those shades. All that experience, just looking from left to right and right to left all the while. There's Jumbo-Visma, there's Wout van Aert, still with 3 riders to protect him. Nizzolo has chosen that side of the road, and so too has Gabs Kuleg from the Movistar team. And David Gonzalez from Caja Rural. Colin Joyce in the orange of Rally being moved closer to the coattails of the De Koning Quick-Step train, and still Dowsett works on the front for the Israel Startup Nation. Wow. I think it's Michael Woods they're riding for, Israel Startup Nation. They haven't got very many riders left. They've gone through their numbers.
Here we go now, yeah, it's just on this top of this climb now. We drop down again before the final climb to finish, and it looks to be Cavendish getting on the front just over this top, pushing the tempo on a bit, keeping things together. You got Rowan Dennis now, Ineos Grenadiers on the right-hand side, Sylvain Dillier, the Swiss national champion in the red, just tucked in behind him. Michael Wood still there, Nizzolo still in there as well, and he's not done any work on the front yet, so maybe he thinks he's in with a shout at the finish today.
Some ride this from Mark Cavendish. Perhaps the last contribution he's going to make now, but he's going to go very, very deep here, Cavendish, just on this uncategorised climb. This might be his finish line fairly soon, Cavendish, but by the looks of him, he's so fresh he could carry on. A huge ride in an uncharacteristic role. Mark Cavendish trying to prove his worth as if he needed to his team, the man who won 4 stages at the Tour de France, trying to set things up either for Davide Ballerini, who interestingly is still the last man in this De Koning Quick-Step train, or for Julien Alaphilippe. But that's it, Mark Cavendish takes them to within 3 kilometres of the finish.
Dan Martin just moving up on the left-hand side of your screen now. Rowan Dennis is just tucked away in a nice position, right, left-hand side of the road, right-hand side of our screens. It wouldn't surprise me if he tries to just move up a little bit more, but Ethan Hayter, if he's around Alaphilippe, he's in a good spot. Ballerini as well, still there. Niels Aikoff still there from DSM as well, so a great number of sprinters. You got just down there, Wout van Aert, just getting out the saddle a little bit more. He seems to have 1 teammate just in front of him still. Kwiatkowski still in there, I forgot about, still there, just tucked in front of Hayter at the minute.
Yves Lampaert, yeah, what a ride from him. Lampaert, Honoré, Alaphilippe and Ballerini, and I'm beginning to think, Adam, that Ballerini is the guy they're riding for today. It's quite possible. He could be a back guard for Julien Alaphilippe, or he could be about to sprint in his own right. In theory, this is a finish that would suit Davide Ballerini really well. But then on his coattail, Niels Aikoff, the Dutch sprinter from DSM, and the Ineos Grenadiers.
They are going hard right now. Look at the length of this peloton. Normally coming into the finish, you see them all bunched up, but it is just flat out in one line. No rider is moving up at the minute because of the pace that Yves Lampaert is setting. You got Ethan Hayter just tucked in behind Wout van Aert at the minute now. Now Wout van Aert's moving up, just in the yellow jersey in front of him, the Jumbo-Visma jersey, just moving up, trying to gain a few places. 1.9k to go.
Well, this is it. This is the last little climb, and then they'll drop down into Bodmin and line themselves up for the finishing kilometre, which for the first 300 metres rises up at around about 8%. It could knock the stuffing out of some of these riders who are on the limit, but equally it could prove the opportunity for someone to launch an attack if they've got the legs. Maybe Julien Alaphilippe, let's see. Dropping down into Bodmin. This is it, Adam. This is the big finale.
This is the big finale now, dropping down straight into it, and then they'll roll just into the next climb now, but you can see how fast it is and see how difficult it is for anyone to move up. Ethan Hayter there on the right-hand side of your screen. He's looking to be on, I think it's his teammate's wheel. Owain Doull by looks at Kwiatkowski in front of him. He needs to move up just a little bit, get into that roll behind Jumbo-Visma rider there. Wout van Aert, Nizzolo moving up. 1k to go now.
Through 1 kilometre to go then. They continue to drop down to the centre of Bodmin, and pretty soon they're going to see the road rise up in front of them, and then it'll drag all the way to the finish line. This is it. This is all about positioning, but De Koning Quick-Step have all their cards to play right at the front of the bunch now. The blue jerseys and the white jersey of Julien Alaphilippe now swamped by the Ineos Grenadiers, who take over. Looking around to see where Ethan Hayter is. Kwiatkowski is rider number 3 at the moment, as here they go lightning fast down into the centre of Bodmin. Massive crowds here enjoying the sunshine, and up this ramp now. Here's where it kicks up 8-10%, but they're skipping up it as if it didn't exist.
Kwiatkowski on the front, Alaphilippe on his wheel, Hayter behind him now, Wout van Aert on the left-hand side of your picture in that black sleeve jersey on the right, Nizzolo there as well, but here goes Alaphilippe.
Big dig, that's an attack from Alaphilippe. That is an attack from Alaphilippe. His teammate Ballerini will be riding the wheels. Alaphilippe shakes his head, looks round, sees the Belgian national champion there, and Wout van Aert is almost waiting to pick off the field. Ethan Hayter, Niels Eekhoff, Nizzolo is there. Niels Eekhoff challenging Wout van Aert down the middle. Eekhoff on the wheel of the Belgian. Wout van Aert though pushing for the line. Can he be beaten? No, he can't. Wout van Aert does what he does and wins again. The Belgian irrepressible and making a statement at the first possible opportunity there. Adam, we saw it coming. In the end, no one could do anything about it.
No one could do anything about it. And there was that little ease up there, wasn't there, by Alaphilippe, and he just almost touched the wheel and being able to almost stall and go again there. The power of Wout van Aert. No one was able to match him almost. As soon as he accelerated, that was it. No one could even get near him. But I think just Alaphilippe there going a little bit early, and you can see him now as Wout van Aert went just trying to get on terms. Ethan Hayter just behind him. It was a tough sprint up that hill, and what a lead out there by Ineos Grenadiers and De Kooning in quick step. But Wout van Aert, wow. As soon as he went, there was no touching him, and even in sitting up, 25 metres to go, 20 metres, easy.
Well, my word, he makes it look easy. But they pushed him, and Wout van Aert will know that he's in a battle after all. Bodmin has delivered. Huge crowds have just seen a grand champion take a fine win. Team Jumbo-Visma playing it perfectly for leader Wout van Aert to take the win on the difficult uphill finish to Bodmin. Second on the stage was Dutchman Niels Eekhoff, with Spaniard Gonzalo Serrano Rodriguez of Team Movistar rounding off the podium places. The Belgian national champion swapping that jersey for the AJ Bell Blue Leaders top in Bodmin.
I kind of expected something like that from Alaphilippe. And yeah, it's always important to be really close on his moves. So yeah, I don't wait too long when I saw Heather was in trouble to close the gap on Julien. And when I came on his wheel, it was all about having the right timing and yeah, waiting long enough because yeah, it was a hard finish.
A great day in the breakaway for Jake Scott as he collected the Iceberg Sports Breaks points competition. The rider from Canyon, DHB Sungod, was back on the podium as leader in the Skoda King of the Mountains competition too.
Absolutely no surprise that it was a phenomenal stage, a first stage here in Cornwall today of this year's AJ Bell Tour of Britain. Really pleased Jacob Scott is here with us, winner of 2 of the jerseys today, but also Dave Potter, who was instrumental in bringing the Tour of Britain here to Cornwall. Dave, tell us quickly how.
Yeah, well, we were watching this race 5 years ago in Wales, and we thought, why hasn't it come to Cornwall for 30 years? So I set about at home, writing to all the town and parish councils, got them on board. There was a great community desire for something like this, and then went into bat with Cornwall Council, and after a number of years of encouragement, they signed the contract, and here we are today.
Just tell us what the legacy of this is for Cornwall today.
Yeah, as much as anything, the investment in cycling in Cornwall is going to get picked up tremendously. We've got a Cornwall Cycle Hub that's just recently gained planning permission, so that's something that's really big in Cornwall at the moment.
Great, Dave, thanks very much indeed. Dave, I wonder what it looks like when you're in the breakaway. Jake, what does it look like?
I think today it was very misty, so you know we didn't see probably as much of it as we could have done. But I was saying to Dave earlier, you know, the first bit was I really enjoyed. Just the narrowness of the roads and the twistiness, and yeah, just so up and down. I just really enjoyed the beginning of it. To be fair, you know, I was nearly trying to let someone else go up the road, and I was just the one that wasn't boxed in, and I thought, oh well, there we go, I'm going, and yeah, that was a breakaway that stuck.
Well, really well done. To get 2 jerseys on your back after the first stage is very impressive. So let's see what stage 2 has in store for Jake and the rest of the peloton tomorrow.
It's over 50 kilometres before the first points on stage 2 with a category 2 climb at Street. This is quickly followed by sprints at Slapton Sands and Kingsbridge. The final dash of the stage comes at Tavistock. The peloton then heads on to Dartmoor with the climbs of Rundleston and Warren House Inn offering more Skoda King of the Mountain points. Having left the National Park, there are some fast descents before the finish on Queen Street.
So plenty of climbing in store. Certainly doesn't get any easier on the Tour of Britain for Stage 2. Join us for live coverage back on ITV4 at 10:45 tomorrow morning. Highlights once again at 8 in the evening. See you then. Bye-bye.